Breaking news today on Seculo as an American is killed by an Iranian drone.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Seculo. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Seculo.
All right, welcome to Seculo. With all the conflict around the world, this was a breaking news story late last night, but there's been continued action. So late last night, an Iranian-made drone fired by an Iranian proxy, likely that would be Hezbollah because this was in Syria, killed one U.S. contractor, military contractor, and 3 other American soldiers are injured at least. We then responded with an attack on a base for that Iranian affiliate. There's very careful language here. We'll talk to Rick Grinnell and Mike Pompeo about that. They're going to be joining us in this first half hour of the broadcast, because they're not blaming directly Iran, but of course Hezbollah is controlled by Iran, and we know they're operating as well. I want to put it up on the screen right now for those of you watching, because when you hear that there is a U.S. base in Syria, you might kind of be thinking an outpost like in Afghanistan with very much like CIA and secretive. This is not that. This is very official in the sense that we've got a U.S. flag flying. I mean, that's a base. That's a statement
It's called
base.
a coalition base, actually.
Which also provides a target.
Yeah, so most of these were put in place during the primary time when ISIS was making moves in the greater Middle East, including in Syria.
Syrian civil war, which is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing, and we had these bases. We have probably about 900 CIA operative types. They call them contractors, roughly in the region.
Military.
Some U.S. military. But as you see, there's an American flag flying here. So this was a direct attack by an Iranian proxy on a U.S. This is what's interesting, on a U.S. base, or at least a U.S. affiliated base, and at the same time understand that the Russians have been negotiating a resolution of hostilities between Saudi Arabia and Iran when Iran was on a trajectory under the previous administration. We'll talk to Mike Pompeo and Rick Grinnell about this in a moment, to be in alliance with Israel. So this is quite a change that's taken place, and this was a direct assault on the United States.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so you've got this base is right between Turkey and Iraq, and of course Iran is right there. It doesn't border, but yeah, there we've got on the screen for everybody. So I mean, this again, so it's northeast Syria. It's probably a wake-up call to a lot of American people this morning that we're still so active there. But that is why we've heard reports, ISIS has been reconstituting. This is why we have those 900 individuals, a mixture of contractors and U.S. troops, is to make sure they aren't able to create a caliphate, even in the midst of what is a very complicated situation in Syria with Assad's regime, ISIS, and Iran involved. And, of course, the U.S. involved.
Yeah.
Russia was involved there as well.
No, this is the problem. Russia has been very involved. Our first book we wrote on the Middle East.
Side there.
After we wrote Rise of ISIS, the second book in the trilogy was Unholy Alliance. It was Russia, Syria, and Iran. Iran seems to be the constant in all of this, whether it's Iran or Hezbollah, an Iran proxy. And what a proxy war means is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's not going in there necessarily themselves, but they train Hezbollah. These are terrorist organizations operating in the Middle East, and they have them go in and do their bidding. And it's called a proxy war. We did a movie about this whole issue calling Export, which was involving it's a great movie. Interviews that we'll never get again. I mean, these were incredible. We should probably retool that movie and get it back out now years later, because it is relevant today as it was then. And it focused on that exact issue of this proxy war with Iran. And in a sense, we were in that proxy war last night and this morning.
Yeah, the war continues.
Yes.
And I think that we haven't paid as much attention because ISIS was destroyed. The leader was taken out by President Trump, and there has not been as much Islamic terror in the world.
Right.
There was a great partnership made in the Gulf states, but that partnership has now changed.
That's correct.
Because Saudi Arabia, upset with the Biden administration, and some of it is the war against their prince, some of it is the war against fossil fuel, has brokered an agreement with Iran, which is unheard of. And very unfortunate that the Biden administration
we're making with the Abraham Accords
making the world a more dangerous place for
put
Americans.
On hold. Yes,
again,
targeting America. Americans
killed. Dead.
Yeah, so this is serious stuff. All right, we're taking your calls at 800-684-3110. Coming up, our special counsel on global affairs and our senior advisor on global affairs. That'll be Rick Grinnell, followed by Mike Pompeo. Back with more in a moment.
members and another U.S. contractor.
Lloyd Austin saying the attacks targeted groups affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
They are seen as really almost like a special forces element of Iran that works by, with, and through many of the different elements, many of the different rebel groups that are in Syria, and they are quite prolific.
Lloyd Austin vows the U.S. will, quote, always respond at a time and place of our choosing. No group will strike our troops with impunity.
This morning, reports state that 11 pro-Iranian fighters were killed in those retaliatory airstrikes.
The Department of Defense said it, quote, took proportionate and deliberate action intended to limit the risk of escalation and minimize casualties.
U.S. Central Command stating, we are postured for scalable options in the face of any additional Iranian attacks. Our troops remain in Syria to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS, which benefits the security and stability of not only Syria, but the entire region.
The Iranian proxies are working very much in conjunction with Iran. And it's also something to note that when you look at the way in which this happened, you can see this happening right after Iran and Saudi Arabia patched up their relationship with China's help.
We've been very clear with the Iranians and with our partners about how serious the mission that we're doing in Syria is and how much we're going to protect that mission. Iran should not be involved in supporting these attacks on our facilities or on our people.
So you're looking at what's happening in Iran, you look at what's happening in Syria, you're looking at what's happening in the Ukraine, you're looking at the potential escalation with China and Taiwan, and it tells you one thing: the world does not respect us because this administration has completely abandoned the mantra of peace through strength.
So overnight, very late last night, the news broke that an Iranian-made drone was used by an Iranian proxy. Let's be honest, that proxy is controlled by Iran. It's Hezbollah in Syria that targeted a U.S. Troops as well as U.S. contractors. A U.S. contractor has been killed. At least 3 U.S. troops have been injured by that drone attack. Then the U.S. responded by an attack on that affiliate of Iran, as they're going to say, on a Hezbollah base. That killed 8 Hezbollah fighters, I think, killed 8 Hezbollah fighters. Then they responded again, another attack on our base in Syria. No casualties reported from that attack. The big question now is what happens next. So the U.S. has not responded to that attack yet.
No, that's right. So, but you've got an ongoing conflict. All right, let's get Rick Grinnell in. Rick, of course, was U.S. ambassador to Germany, obviously a significant role there, but also the director of national intelligence. Rick, first of all, your reaction to this move by the Iranians. The thing that concerns me in this, Rick, is we had a lot of progress under your administration, especially under the Abraham Accords. And it looked like Saudi Arabia was, although they didn't formally join the Accords, they were in line to. And now it looks like they're realigning a little bit with Iran because of Russia's brokerage here. But what is your assessment of the situation with this Iranian-backed, at least, or a drone attack on a U.S. base, and we lost an American?
Well, look, it's clear that this appeasement strategy from the Biden administration is not working. We've seen an increase of attacks. You can't look at the facts and not see that there has been Iranian and Iranian-backed groups attacks, an increase in attacks since Joe Biden took office. Remember that one of the first things they tried to do was to immediately engage the Iranians. There was talk about paying them to come back to the table, giving away as much as they could just to get the Iranians back to negotiations. And that whole idea was pay them, keep them close, because then we might be able to monitor their nuclear weapons programs. What the Trump administration policy was is to galvanize the world to sanction and isolate Iran. That was working. It should have been a policy that was kept in place. But instead, you had Joe Biden, who literally took the Houthis off the terrorist list. And within just weeks, the Houthis were bombing and sending missiles into the UAE. These bad policies, these weak policies, have consequences.
You know, Rick, what I think people are going to be surprised about, and it's just because it really just hasn't gotten much news coverage. Obviously, this base wasn't secret. We showed the image of it to folks. I mean, it's a pretty serious size base, got a U.S. flag flying. But to our audience, that we are still that engaged in Syria. And we were explaining earlier that we want to make sure that ISIS does not come back on the rise. But the issue here is that is this the potential for a new escalation in what is a very complicated, ongoing civil war?
Look, the answer is yes. And the other success that Donald Trump had in Syria, and the reason why ISIS was destroyed, the reason why we really calmed that situation down from when Biden, the Obama-Biden team had inflamed it, is because Russia is absolutely in control in Syria. And we need to be very clear about that. The Russian relationships with the Iranians and the Chinese right now is a growing relationship. This is a game of high stakes chess. And the reality is that you have to be talking to the Russians if you want to keep the Islamic State from rising inside Syria. The Russians are very good at controlling the Iranians when they want to be. I'm not suggesting that the Russians are total strategy, but if you're going to talk about calming the situation down in Syria so that we can better control terrorism, you've got to have discussions with the Russians. The Russians want certain things out of Syria. They want the ports, they want oil. There should be a negotiation to keep peace or greater peace in Syria. This is just the reality, and Donald Trump did a fantastic job of it.
The thing that I'm concerned with, one is one of many. I wrote a book, this was probably 5 years ago now, called Unholy Alliance, and it was really focused on Russia, Iran, and Syria, and the whole jihadi threat. And then during your time in office, we saw that the relationship with Russia, our relationship with Russia, improved significantly, which then brought about the stability in the region. Israel's relationship with Russia was in much better shape. You had the Gulf states joining the Abraham Accords. Iran, as you said, was being isolated. And then the first thing that the Obama, it is a continuation, the Biden administration did was try to get back into the JCPOA, which, of course, is the Iranian nuclear deal. And it's not happened because the Iranians aren't going to do it. But the people are saying that the Iranians are on the threshold. I don't want you to divulge anything, but you were the director of national intelligence. Do you believe that Iran is close to capability of a nuclear weapon, and would they use it if they had it?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes and yes. And the reality is that we can't trust the Iranian regime. They lie. They've lied from the very beginning about the number of centrifuges that they told John Kerry that they had. They've lied about the heavy water production that they have done. They've been caught. They scrub sites. There's one thing to remember is that the UN's IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, they are scientists. They don't carry guns. They don't go into rooms or go into places where they are not automatically welcomed in by the Iranians. The Security Council of the UN is designed to be there when the IAEA wants to go check out a site and the Iranian regime says no. That then bubbles up to the Security Council, and the Security Council is supposed to be the one that says, okay, let them in or we'll write a bad report on you. There are not good consequences for the Iranian regime to deny the international community, the UN, from getting what it needs to issue a report that says that they're not seeking a nuclear weapon. So the short answer is we don't know exactly because we're not getting very good information.
We have phone calls coming in about this situation where a U.S. contractor has been killed by an Iranian drone. 3 U.S. troops have been injured. This is in Syria. Lynn in Washington State on line 1. Hey, Lynn.
Hi. I was wondering, have we heard anything at all from President Joe Biden regarding this incident? It's late in the day already where you guys are. Washington is open. Has President Biden said anything to the people?
Well, of course, we responded by military attack, so that's one thing. Remember, there was a response. We killed 9 Hezbollah fighters, and then they responded. No casualties again on the U.S. side, so we don't know if there will be a next response yet. There's also been there's a written statement out from Secretary Austin, but John Kirby did make this statement to CNN that we can play right now, Byte 27.
He had a discussion with his national security team on the way up here to Ottawa in the wake of the drone strike on our base in Syria, and received recommendations from Defense Department leaders and the intelligence community about what response options could look like. He made the decision very, very shortly in that discussion to authorize these strikes against these particular targets.
And then, Rick, they struck back. Okay, so let me ask you this. What should be the next move here for the United States? If Rick Grenell was calling the shot here.
So remember, I'm a diplomat. I'm a long-term diplomat. And what I would just say here is we now have an American contractor that has been killed in Syria simply because the United States government is not able to talk to Russia about what's happening in Syria. We're not able to talk about Russia because of the Ukraine war, because of this chaos. We literally have a diplomatic breakdown. It's now causing Americans to be killed. It is going to get worse. I would be all for having strikes to retaliate if on the way to strikes you were having diplomatic conversations and somehow you weren't making progress. But by Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken's own admission, Jay, they have not spoken with their Russian counterparts until very recently. Over a year, there was no talk, and that's why Syria has delved into chaos.
Rick, we appreciate your insight, your analysis. And again, this is an ongoing situation, but a wake-up call for the American people, that we still have troops and contractors and Americans in harm's way in Syria who are directly combating. I mean, and Secretary Austin's statement said Iranian Revolutionary Guards affiliated groups. I mean, they're not holding that back.
Let me say this also, though, about the American Center for Law and Justice. You just heard from our senior advisor, Rick Grenell, who's the former director of national intelligence. Coming up next is the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who happened to be a senior counsel of global affairs for the American Center for Law and Justice. So we did a campaign 2 years ago called Now More Than Ever, the need for the ACLJ. There's a good example of it right now. You're not getting this analysis anyplace else. And we'll work on the international tribunals to make sure that things are done correctly here and America's interests are protected, even if the administration decides not to. Your support makes a big difference. We're in a matching challenge campaign at aclj.org. So any amount you donate, we get a matching campaign, matching gift for at aclj.org. We encourage you to do it. Let me say this also. I'm going to stay live during this break. We've got can we do that, Will, or should we not? We got a lot of people that are joining us on Rumble right now, and we encourage that as our preferred source to go to Rumble. We encourage you to do that right now. Hey, I'm going to talk to our folks on Rumble specifically, or if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, that's fine too. Our preferred provider, of course, is Rumble, because we don't worry about getting censored here. There's a lot of you on right now, thousands of you, and that means more of you are going to be joining in the moments ahead. If you're appreciating the work that's going on here at the ACLJ, including this broadcast, we produce this every single day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. We have our analysts are actually part of our team. They're not just commentators. These are people that are working with us and our global affiliates. We have offices around the globe at the American Center for Law and Justice. Our office in the Middle East is in Jerusalem. We have office affiliations on the continent of Africa. We have our European Center for Law and Justice in Strasbourg, France. We had operating facilities in Russia for years. Obviously, that is no longer the situation because of the sanctions that were put in place. But this kind of gives you the scope and nature of our work. And that enabled us to engage on significant levels on multiple fronts. That's where you come in. If you are so inclined and you're able to do it, I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. There's two things I'd like you to do, actually. If you're watching on the social media right now, especially on, again, Rumble, but on any of the ones you're on, subscribe to us. Hit follow on Rumble. That gets us, you get our feed then, and you'll get notifications when we come up, and also the thumbs up also helps. We encourage you to do that. Also, support the work of the ACLJ if you're able. If you donate $25, for instance, we get a matching gift of $25, so it's $50. We're in a matching challenge. This month, next month, our matching challenge months is for us. That's very, very important. It's a big part of what we do. I encourage you to be part of our ACLJ team. Jordan can give you a little bit of the details on how it'll work.
Yeah, that's right. So you go to aclj.org. We have a group of our donors, committed donors, who say in this month, to help the ACLJ continue to grow and expand, we will match all of the donations that come through. So if you make a $25 donation online right now at aclj.org, that donation is matched by one of our donors who committed to match each donation. Seculo. Again, to reset just quickly, Iranian drone used to strike an American base. A U.S. contractor has been killed, as well as 3 American servicemen or women injured. We then responded, killed 8 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps affiliated groups, so Hezbollah, and about 8 of them have been killed. They then shot back at our base again. No one was injured. The question now is what happens next?
Yes, and we are joined by our senior counsel for global affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mike, first, as Jordan just said, Iranian developed drone, probably put in place by or manned by, directed by Hezbollah, killed an American contractor, injured other U.S. military personnel on a base of the United States in Syria. Where does that put us? Because this is a unique situation. You had, under your administration, you had a tremendous growth and stability in the region with the Abraham Accords. I feel like we're digressing at a very rapid rate here.
Jared, we did live this for 4 years. What the Iranians understand is strength and power, and they'll do this kind of thing when they observe weakness. It does feel like this is coming unraveled, not just in this particular instance, and of course it is. Our condolences go out to the contractor, the American contractor that was killed. But it feels like it's coming unraveled in the sense of a risk is higher. The Middle East now no longer trusts the United States of America to have its back when difficult things happen. And that means the bad actors, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon or Syria or the Iraqi militias, the Shia militias in Iraq, these folks feel freer to come after Americans because they think that the United States won't take action in response. I'm happy to see that we did. I don't know precise. I've seen the reporting. It's been a little bit all over about how we responded. But make no mistake about it, they would not have done this. They wouldn't have flown this drone. By the way, probably the same type of drone that's being used by the Russians coming from Iran in Ukraine. They wouldn't have used this drone if they thought that the cost to them was going to exceed the benefit. We have to restore that deterrence. These guys in the White House just simply haven't figured out how to do that.
You know, Secretary Pompeo, what I think people, again, they're waking up to this news. They're seeing us talking about it. They might be surprised that we even had a base in this many U.S., whether it's contractors and a mix of other U.S. officials, men and women, and including officials, men and women in our armed forces. So not just CIA or contractors, but that we have 900 still in Syria. And things have been relatively calm, at least what's been reported in the news. But in Secretary Austin's written statement, which was interesting to me that he added this point because we weren't really seeing this in the news at all, that the attack followed a series of recent attacks against coalition forces in Syria by Iranian affiliated groups. So things have been escalating in Syria. We just weren't really learning about that in the news. It wasn't being reported widely.
Jordan, it doesn't surprise me. So those soldiers have been on the ground there for quite some time. This was the force that was leading the charge to take down the caliphate during our years there, when we needed the Americans on the ground to assist the indigenous forces at crushing ISIS, who was cutting people's heads off when President Obama was in office. The residual force that had remained there was attempting to secure that, provide a continued stability, and deter terrorism from that region. But the fact that this is heated up, the fact that the Iranians are now feeling more free to move about the cabin, right? It's consistent with the fact that the United States for months and months and months was sitting with the Iranians at the table, trying to figure out how to make sure the Iranians had a pathway to a nuclear weapon. The fact that they knew full well that they were likely to get the sanctions lifted on their regime. The fact that the United States no longer is as close a supporter of Israel. And so the Arab states, the Gulf Arab states, are now thinking, gosh, I got to hedge my bets with Iran. All of those things are of a part. It all seems disconnected. But this all drives from a central thesis, which is that when you appease the Iranian, the world's largest state sponsor of terror that has killed hundreds of Americans and thousands of people across the world, when you appease them, they're going to take advantage of it. And we saw that today.
It's very interesting that you said this, Mike, because it's kind of looking at the backside of a tapestry. It looks really pretty on the front, and the backside, it looks like it's how did they get there to tie all these pieces in? And here's the thing that has me very concerned as someone that I've worked in this region for a long time. I've done work at the International Criminal Court in The Hague on issues involving the Middle East. But here's what has me the most concerned right now. And it seemed like in Saudi Arabia's situation, which is a complicated relationship, no doubt, and you dealt with it firsthand. But there seemed to be cooperation between the Saudis and the Israelis. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist at all now, because there was a common foe, and that was Iran. And I think that Russia was able to get in there and influence the Saudis as it relates to Iran, like you said, hedging their bets. And in every alliance you see that's dangerous, it seems like the constant right now is Iran.
I think that's true. I think it's true in large measure because Iran feels like they slipped the bit, like they were on the cusp of having to do something really difficult. And when President Biden was elected, they sent special envoy to go sit down and say, we told you to hang on. We told you to wait till President Trump and Mike Pompeo left, and things would be better, and we're going to make your life better. So you're exactly right. Think about this. So Iran providing drones to the Russians to kill Ukrainian kids. Iran now flying a drone to kill an American today. Iranians continuing to patrol the Persian Gulf in ways that put Israeli interests at risk, and the Israelis concerned about continued advancement of the Iranians in the southeastern part of Syria that threatens them in connection to Hezbollah. These are all pieces, this is your point, these are all pieces of an Iran that feels emboldened, empowered. And when that happens, the central thesis, which was that if you isolate Iran, it is better for America, falls apart. We had them as isolated as they had ever been. The Gulf Arab states were joined alongside of it. Some of them signed the Abraham Accords, but all of them knew that the United States was serious about protecting things that mattered to their people. And the Israelis knew that they could count on America as well. And when you do that, you put Iran in a box. And when you don't do that, you see the kind of things you're beginning to see happen, not only in the Middle East, but all across the world as well.
Mike, we appreciate it. Mike Pompeo, of course, former Secretary of State, former Director of the CIA, currently a Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, the ACLJ. Mike, thanks for your insight.
Again, we continue to take your phone calls to 1-800-684-3110.
There's an interesting thing, though.
Yeah.
In this half hour of this broadcast, you had the former Director of National Intelligence and the former Secretary of State and Director of the CIA, all part of the ACLJ team, talking to our audience, our members around the country, frankly, around the world on these issues. Yeah,
but it's a story where an American has been killed, 3 U.S. service members injured by Iran and their affiliates with a drone strike. We fired back. We killed 8 of them. They fired back again. No casualties, thankfully, reported by the U.S. The question is what happens next there. But there's not a lot of news reporting on this right now, and that's because if you don't have Rick Grenell and Mike Pompeo breaking this down for you, what I just said is about all you can say.
Right.
But we were able to get deep into why are we just learning today that things have been escalating on the ground in Syria? Who is escalating it? That it's not just Iran and Hezbollah and Assad and these ISIS kind of affiliates and us, that there's Russia, but also that by Russia, now there's China. So you're taking every major world power is at play in Syria right now.
Yeah, and that's where I said it.
While a war is going on in Ukraine.
Right. That's how you get into a war that expands at a very drastic rate very quickly. And listen, part of our job at the ACLJ, when we say to protect freedom and liberty, you got to have a country to protect. You got to have freedom and liberty to protect for your kids and grandkids. That's why when we're doing this work, it's not just talking about it. We're taking action, folks. We brought in the leading experts in the world to figure this stuff out. We need your support at aclj.org. Any amount you donate, we're getting a matching gift for. So I want to encourage you, it's tax deductible, of course. Just go to aclj.org. Any amount you donate, we're getting a matching gift for. If you're able to do it, we appreciate it. aclj.org. Back with more, including your phone calls at 800-684-3110 for the second half hour. Here's what I want to say to our ACLJ members, or for those of you that enjoy watching this broadcast. Whether it is going after the deep state, whether it is litigation that we're engaged in, whether it is defending the persecuted church and getting individuals out of prison because of their faith in other countries, whether it's training lawyers to fight for religious liberty, not just here in the United States, but around the globe, whether it is producing a daily, 5 days a week, 1 hour live television and radio broadcast heard on thousands of radio stations, on TV platforms, on social media platforms. Your support of the ACLJ enables us to do all of this. We want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. And when you do that, you're supporting our production teams, our videos, whether it's that kind of production and other things that we are working on. The ACLJ is front and center on this. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. Go to aclj.org.
keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Seculo. And now your host, Jordan Seculo.
All right, welcome back to Seculo. As we analyzed this ongoing story, I mean, this has happened late last night, the report that a U.S. contractor, military contractor, as well as 3 U.S. troops were, the contractor was killed, so an American killed, and 3 U.S. troops injured by an Iranian drone fired by Hezbollah at a U.S. base. Then the U.S. responded by attacking a Hezbollah base connected to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. That killed 8 of their soldiers or fighters. And then they struck back yet again, which shows their capabilities. When we struck, it wasn't like that they were paralyzed. They struck right back. Thankfully, there were no U.S. casualties. I want to put on the screen again very quickly for everybody. When we talk about this U.S. base in Syria, this is not a tent of CIA agents hiding out in a city. This is the American flag flying. I mean, it's not a giant facility, but if you look there, there's Humvees and some major vehicles. That kind of shows you the size. So right now we have a serious situation developing there. We analyzed that with Rick Grinnell and Mike Pompeo. We've also had a big win for parental rights in the U.S. House of Representatives. This is going to be an ongoing battle through the next election cycle, certainly, because you had every single Democrat voting against the Parents' Bill of Rights Act. Why? One thing. Teachers unions.
Yeah, and we talked about that yesterday. The teachers unions are strong, and they don't want parental involvement. You know where you saw that the most? When you had to do distance learning. Yes. The teachers unions did not want parents, because it was being done in the kid's house,
to listen.
They didn't want the parents to listen to the classroom what was going on. So those days need to come to an end. So Congress,
you're going to set up your 6-year-old and not pay attention to what they're watching on their right. iPad, which is not good parenting, actually.
No, but exactly right. But they also thought that they could get away with this. So here's what we did. ACLJ and ACLJ Action went to work on this. ACLJ Action is more the legislative arm and getting information in. And we had a great success this morning. House of Representatives, we won. The bill passed. It'll go to the Senate. Now, what's interesting here, at the same time that was going on. I want
to say thank you to our ACLJ Action supporters and people who responded. We got 15,227 people to write their own comment in to Congress in 24 hours on this vote. In 24 hours, 15,000 of you utilized the ACLJ Action tool on that website, acljaction.org, to contact your member of Congress to vote yes on the Parents' Bill of Rights Act, which, again, just empowers parents instead of empowering teachers' unions and school boards.
At the same time, the ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice, sent in comments to the Department of Education, the Education Department, on a rollback of religious freedom guarantees being proposed by the Biden administration. These were put in place during the previous administration, protecting religious freedom on campus, and the Biden administration has proposed to take the teeth out of those regulations. The teeth where if you violate free speech rights of students, or teachers for that matter, on campus, you put your federal funding at risk. And the government wants to take that was the only teeth in the regulation, and they want to take that out. So we responded. Here's another interesting aspect of this. Of the about 15,000 responses on that one, that came in on that particular piece of regulation by the Department of Education, 10,310 of those comments that came in were from ACLJ Action, 2/3.
So 2/3 of the comments that came in opposing this rule change by the administration and the Department of Education, which takes all the teeth out. And we'll explain when we come back.
It's on our website at aclj.org.
Too, because the teeth were very important to this. You can say all you want about you need to protect First Amendment rights if you receive federal funds, but what's the if you don't? Well, that's what the Biden administration wanted to take out.
Yeah, because it's too hard to monitor. It's so hard to monitor.
Yes, it's so hard to monitor with their
voluntarily.
Thousands of bureaucrats
that are violating free speech rights of American
monitoring
citizens.
U.S. citizens every day at school board meetings.
That they can do. Yeah. But like I said, the National Archives, they can't find documents contained by presidents, but they can sure pick out pro-life students.
Oh, yeah. Or file lawsuits against pro-life sidewalk counselors.
Yes, all of which ended in victories for the people that were being attacked by the government, I might add. So that's a positive development. Folks, I encourage you to go to aclj.org. We have up on an article that Jordan did. ACLJ files formal public comments to defend religious liberty on campus. That is up right now at aclj.org. Support our work as well, Matching Challenge campaign.
Yeah, at aclj.org, you can double the impact of your donation. That's at ACLJ. So you make a $50 donation right now at aclj.org. We have a group of donors say we will match that donation, but you've got to trigger that match. You make the initial donation, and then you double the impact. So at a time when I know things are tight, you can still double the impact of your donation at aclj.org. Donate today. We'll be right back.
When we see something, when we hear something, when we're concerned about an issue, we don't just talk about it. We do something about it. And that goes to our Government Accountability Project.
If we allow leaders in Washington, D.C. to make decisions behind closed doors, unaccountable to the people, then we are going to get skewed and corrupt decisions.
There are lots of other places that do lots of important work for America, but the ACLJ has taken up a lane which is irreplaceable.
The Freedom of Information Act, that's a statute that allows us to get information from the government. Starts with a letter from our offices in Washington to these agencies. And it says, give us this information on these topics. And generally, they don't. And then we go to court.
We go through a series of lengthy negotiations back and forth about what they'll give or what they won't give. We may get tons of information that's redacted, and we have to then go back and say, you redacted too much. We can't really find out what you're giving us because it makes no sense. So it goes through a process of litigation.
That is how you get information, and that office is going to be more active now more than ever.
The ACLJ has been extremely active in vigorously seeking to hold these bureaucrats accountable. We have filed hundreds of FOIA requests. We have received over 20,000 pages of documents in our litigation.
Holding them accountable, holding the Biden administration accountable so that all Americans are able to have faith in their government.
We will up our efforts. We will not stop.
You're finding a nugget in a gold mine. Occasionally you'll come up with something that is really a bombshell, but you have to persist in doing it, and that's what we do.
That's a little bit of what we do through our Office of Government Accountability, and of course that comes under our Office of Government Affairs. So your support of the ACLJ supports all of that.
All right, welcome back to Secular. I want to dive right into what this passage of this House of Representatives Parents' Bill of Rights Act does. So it passed again, 213 to 208, all Republicans versus Democrats. Some Republicans voted against it, I think 5, but there were no Democrats supporting this. They went lockstep with the teachers' unions. And that's because of basic things like parents can know what their children are being taught. Parents have the right to be heard and offer in-person meetings with parents each year with the teachers, like teacher meetings. This is for public schools.
Parents have the right to know the budgets that the school systems are putting in place for those grades.
To see the school budget spending, right. To protect the children's privacy as well, that parents will have a say to develop or update their student privacy policies, and that parents must consent before there's any medical exam takes place at school, including mental health or substance use disorder screenings, and before students are surveyed. Again, not an emergency situation, but these survey and counseling situations. That a parent of a K through middle schooler, so it's about K through 12 is what we're talking about, kindergarten through 12-year-olds, I would say about the age group, that your parents get to know the information. And also, which I think this is a key one too, parents have the right to keep their children safe. You've got to notify parents about violent acts that are occurring at school,
including
those bullying attacks, violent
which is
attacks.
A huge problem.
If you've got a student who's been, even arrested a few times because of attacking another student or group of students, you don't need to be finding out about the day there's a shooting at the school.
Yeah, this is a common sense approach. It passed the House of Representatives. Now, in the United States Senate, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be uphill. You would think it would pass, but but the teachers' union is so strong.
I want to explain it. This is Republicans and conservatives putting down a marker for the next election cycle.
Because this
issue worked.
Yeah, well, Governor Youngkin's a perfect example in Virginia. That was a state that was very purple at best, kind of blue almost. Yeah. And what happened was the school issue became huge there. Parents were speaking out at school board hearings, and these schools were acting like, we don't want to hear from you. These are our kids when they're in the classroom, which is not the case, by the way. So Governor Youngkin ran on a policy plank that included parental involvement in the educational process, which should be nothing that is so extraordinary.
You would think teachers would actually support
All right, but I'll tell you, someone's been doing this for 40 years. I can't count how many school board hearings I've been to in the course of my career. So this does happen. But having federal legislation, you know what? Even if it doesn't get through the Senate, it's laid down a marker.
It's a marker for the next election cycle.
And that's really important.
Are you on the
for
side
parents.
of parents, or are you on the side of the school board and the teachers' unions?
Yeah, and and the school boards sometimes are just bullied by the teachers' unions, quite frankly. I mean, one of the big uproars was not too far from our studios, and it was in a conservative county. and these teachers unions can still wreak havoc in the administration of education with students.
This is the crazy way the Democrats, like Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, try to explain that this is somehow bad and inappropriate for the federal government using your tax. Remember, this is because these schools are local and state, but they receive federal funds. They receive all of our taxpayer dollars, not just taxpayer dollars at the state level, at the federal level as well. But take a listen to the Democrats and how they try to explain away voting for parents' rights.
It turns Congress into a national school board, withholding essential federal funding if local school districts don't comply with our whims. The self-proclaimed party of limited government and states' rights wants to nationalize our education system, turning Congress into a one-size-fits-all board of education for the entire country.
So I'd ask Jim McGovern first, is he okay with all of us in support, which we are, of abolishing the Department of Education? I bet not, but that was nationalizing the education. The Department of Education, the Republicans want to abolish. So he's talking about, the Republicans, they want the Congress to be running the local schools, but we created the Department of Education with our taxpayer dollars at a national level. And a lot of Republicans say it's a waste and it's bad and we should be returning the money and the power to the communities, to the actual parents of those communities and the students of those communities, school choice, all of those issues. This is why it's a bad issue for Democrats because it's not partisan. It's only partisan for them because they receive so much funding from those teachers unions.
I mean, you got to understand the power of these teachers unions. It's
like the last remaining most powerful union in the country.
I would say, would you say one of the most powerful?
Yeah, used to you would say like the AFL-CIO and those, not even close to the power of the teachers unions.
Let's play this. You want to play this? Which bite? Okay. All right. Hakeem Jeffries.
Extreme MAGA Republicans don't want your child to learn about the LGBTQ plus experience in America. That's not a decision that extreme MAGA Republicans here in Congress should make. The parents of America should be able to make that determination.
And that's what this allows them to do.
That's the juxtaposition of what's so insane here.
It's because they're kids who write their communications. Sean Spicer has been a communications guy joining us next. He's going to be in studio with us. The kids who write their communications aren't very keen on, so he just actually endorsed it.
Yes.
Trying to call it MAGA. Here's the first thing. Parents have the right to know what their children are being taught. Didn't he just say that parents of Americans should be able to make that determination? That's all it says. Congress says as long as you tell the parents, you can teach what you want, including that LGBTQ.
Just tell the parents.
If that's what your school district wants to do. But you can't hide it. Because why?
Can't hide any of it.
Might think that's not appropriate for a second grader.
Do you remember years ago? It was years ago.
Only up to middle school. That's probably not appropriate for them.
Yeah. Here's what's so interesting to me. Do you remember, it was years ago, there was this curriculum in California of teaching the 5 pillars of Islam. Parents didn't know anything about it. Yeah. The kids were bowing down to Mecca. Now, can you imagine if they were doing a Jewish or a Christian prayer?
Not learning world religion.
No, it wasn't about
participating in religion.
But you could imagine if it was a Jewish practice or a Christian practice.
No, you can't pray.
No, right. So but then Hakeem Jeffries just said exactly what the legislation does. The parents should make this decision in America. Right. It's a parents' bill of rights, actually, is what this is.
Right, and this helps push it along the way to parents' rights because the federal funding would be at stake.
Here's the problem.
So this federal funding, which isn't like immediately revoked, it just can be, it empowers parents.
Yeah, but you know what it is? You say up is down, down is up, hot is cold, cold is hot. Here's the problem. They don't read the legislation. They just know, the labor union, or in this particular case, the teachers union says, no, we're done. And that's the way it is. So we fought back on this, folks, aggressively. And, I mean, we produced a lot of action on this, and we need to retrace what that was. If you're watching, by the way, on our social media, we encourage you, share this with your friends, especially, again, on Rumble. Hit follow and share this with your friends. Give us a thumbs up. We'll get into more feeds, more people watching. Yeah. But let's explain exactly what we did here. I think it's very important.
In 24 hours, we have a tool at ACLJ Action. Makes it very easy for you to send a message to your member of Congress directly. So not just broadly to Congress, but to your member of Congress. 15,227 of you did it on this in support of parental bill of rights in 24 hours. 15,227 people took the time. Now, the letter's preset, but we encourage you to, you can edit it, you can write your own, you can delete all of our language and write your own. But so it can be as quick as you want, you can take as long as you want. And thank you to the 15,227 of your ACLJ supporters, ACLJ Action members who took action when we asked these last 24 hours to make sure, as you said, that we put a marker down on this issue. Because I would love to take this to Hakeem Jeffries and just play that soundbite over and over and over again. And that's how you take a purple state and turn it red very, very quickly. So we know this is going to be, and maybe this is just for all of you to know, this is going to be a very much number 1 or 2 top issue. Of course, the economy and world events are issues as well, leading into the next election cycle. And I want you all to know about that as well, how important that is. So, again, thank you. When this hits the Senate, which is going to be an uphill battle, we'll engage again, and we'll let you know. We're going to be rewriting the text, rewriting the letter to ACLJ action, and we'll want you to weigh in as well, because you can then get, even if we can't win it in the Senate, we get those Senate Democrats talking about it just like Hakeem Jeffries did. Their top Democrat in the House.
But let me tell you, the thing is, you have a problem. There's a solution. So the hope here is we actually can get a result. And it passed the House of Representatives. Like George said, even if we can't get it through the Senate, first of all, now it's on everybody's radar. Every school district is aware of this. Every town is aware of this. Every teacher is going to be aware of this. And the ACLJ said, here's the way you can respond and help us get this passed, and it passed. Now it becomes a marker for 2024 that parents are going to want. And it's going to cross the ideological spectrums. It's going to cross the party affiliations. Parents have the right to know what's going on in their kids' school. And we know the teachers' unions don't like that. They didn't like the fact that when they were having to do Zoom classes, they wanted Zoom classes. They loved that. But they didn't want parents listening to what was going on in those classes.
We know Sean Spicer, he is in a little bit of traffic. He was trying to join us in studio live today. We'll do our podcast as well, definitely. So we'll have Sean on. His book is The Parents Go Bananas. It's a kid's book, his first kid's book.
There you go.
We'll talk about it on the Secular Brothers podcast, and maybe we'll be able to record something we can drop into the Secular broadcast as well. I will confirm there was traffic on the way into work this morning. Unexpected. It was not a wreck. It was just some kind of lining and then there's some weather issues as well. But we come back, I want to dive into this even deeper because I really do believe, I want to hear from you at 1-800-684-3110.
Yeah, open up the phones.
Because why these children's books are becoming important to people is they want something, it's not all religious or all Christian or specific, but something they can read to their kids. It's a positive message so that they're learning at an appropriate level about our country, about right and wrong, and good and bad.
You would think basic, fundamental American democracy,
at school right now,
which is unbelievable. But I think things have digressed significantly since the COVID pandemic. All right, support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org and a matching challenge campaign at aclj.org. We want to hear from you about your local schools. 1-800-684-3110, 800-684-3110. Do you want to know what's going on in your schools? 800-684-3110.
Many parents are in a battle to have more control over their child's education, and now a new bill is making its way through the House that proponents say would give them a louder voice.
Kevin McCarthy says the Parents' Bill of Rights Act sits on 5 main pillars: the right to know what's being taught in schools and the reading material, the right to be heard, the right to see school budgets, the right to protect their children's privacy, and the right to be updated on any violent activity at school.
We think these are pretty basic things that everybody and every parent should have a right to.
The Biden administration claims the education bill does not actually help parents. Supporters say it will be of help to families and teachers.
No one is arguing that parents should dictate what is being taught, but parents should be able to see their school's curriculum, publicly know what books are in the library, and get timely notice about any plans to eliminate gifted and talented programs.
Okay, this news alert just moments ago. The House has passed the Parents' Bill of Rights Act for our schools.
The Supreme Court has acknowledged for more than a century the obvious fact that parents have a fundamental and constitutional right to make the decisions with regard to the care and custody and control of their own children. They should be able to go and exercise their First Amendment rights to go to a school board meeting and advocate for curriculum decisions and other things. But Washington Democrats and their allies on the left believe they know better than parents, and they have been trying to censor and silence parents' views, keep them out of these decisions. We passed legislation today to affirm once again what has always been known in this country and acknowledge widely until today that parents should be the ones that ultimately have the say in those things.
You now have a say in your kids' education. You get the warning. If there's any violence on the campus, you get to know where the money is being spent. You get to know what the reading materials are, and you get to protect your children's privacy as well.
right, welcome back to Secchio. So the Parent Bill of Rights Act, I do want to play Hakeem Jeffries one more time for people because this is the leader of the Democrat Party in the House of Representatives.
Set it up.
Okay, so we passed the Parents Bill of Rights Act, which what it does is basically say, whatever you're teaching, you got to inform the parents. If they're cool with it, everybody's cool with it, fine. We're not going to get involved past that, the federal government. You'll still get your federal funds. But if you won't inform the parents and you're trying to hide the ball from the parents, we're talking about K through middle school, so about kindergarten age through 12 years old. If you do, then maybe we will withhold some of your federal funds. Not definitely, maybe. We'll see how bad the violation was and how systemic the violations are in your school and school district and state. And this is what he had to say in response to opposing empowering parents. And listen at the end.
Extreme MAGA Republicans don't want your child to learn about the LGBTQ plus experience in America. That's not a decision that extreme MAGA Republicans here in Congress should make. The parents of America should be able to make that determination.
Himself right there, didn't he? Realize he just endorsed the bill?
Yeah, just said, it should be up to the parents to make
That's
decisions.
all this does.
Yeah.
If you're in a community like in San Francisco where parents are probably pretty
cool,
liberal,
it's fine.
You're fine. You're not. Why are you scared to tell those parents?
But how did he get?
And they're going to say okay, and that's all this matters is parental consent.
But then but someone wrote the line for him to say MAGA Republicans here in Congress should make the parents of America should be making that decision.
Yeah, teachers usually just don't like what he just said.
Yeah, I think that it was a bad misstatement.
We've dealt with him before,
right?
He's Mr. Misstatement.
And if you don't know, then now you know.
He's Mr. Misstatement. He has no. He is bought and sold
But
by
he
the
is
party.
the leader of the Democratic Party in the
Yes.
House.
So he can deliver statements nicely and eloquently. What he did catch himself because he's not 80 years
see
old.
at the end his mind goes, oh no, I know what I'm about to say, and I'm about to say it should be up in the decision making of the parents. And again, that's all this bill really says.
It's not very MAGA.
It's not
just American.
It's not saying we are going to take conservative messages and put it into liberal cities. It's
say
saying
you must teach
there are
this or
liberal
that.
cities, there are and we're letting parents just have a little bit more say in that, and that we're okay with.
This does not even ban a counselor from talking to your kids about their gender. It just says before that counselor does it, you need to know. That's it.
This is the same school that you can't give your kid a Tylenol.
Yes, but all it says is, by the way, if there's a medical situation like that, you're going to be informed.
Well,
it doesn't mean you can't do it. So they're not saying that you can't teach LGBTQ plus in your school district. They're just saying you got to tell the parents you're doing it.
But there's another interesting aspect of this, and that's the provision of the law that says you can know what the budgets are. Because you know what the problem is with these schools? You don't know what the budgets are for your school. You see this budget of $25 zillion, but you don't see a budget in the school.
Well, where the budget money's going, even if it is a big budget.
Yeah, I think that the transparency of that is very important. I think that parents need to know, like you said, where the money's going.
How much is going to football and basketball and all these alternative classes instead of reading, writing, math, and science.
Yeah. I mean, and the way you would not think you need federal legislation on this, but you do.
Well, it's gotten that out of control. Happens? And we know because of Virginia. We hear the stories, and it's not high school we're talking about here. This is happening in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I mean, this is, again, you've got a lot to learn before you start getting into niche groups' history in America as a kid.
AOC also had something to say.
Oh, yeah.
I think we should at least go to that.
What is she angry about?
Well,
this bill.
This bill. Yeah, go ahead.
They are asking the Republican Party to keep culture wars out of classrooms. Our children need urgent and aggressive educational solutions. The American Library Association coming out against this Republican proposal. When we talk about progressive values, I can say what my progressive value is, and that is freedom over fascism.
No, can I say, okay, fascism.
They're not requiring any curriculum here.
This is not a curriculum requirement, but here's what our children need urgent and aggressive educational solutions. Who doesn't agree with that?
Everybody. In math and science,
If
mostly.
the American Library Association is against it, you should be for it. That's my answer to that, because I've dealt with them for about 40 years.
Oh, yeah, they were the ones who tried to allow pornography on public computers at the library.
But don't have a Christian Bible in the school library.
Exactly. I mean, this again, and all of that progressive stuff she's talking about, if you're in a school, if all the parents are cool with that guess what, where she represents, it gets taught, and you get your federal funds.
You just
it
have to
means
tell
the parents know that it's happening.
Why do the hiding the ball? I know that.
And this is young kids need to learn about, again, progressive activism, you can't even learn about progressive activism if you can't read, because you can't learn about it. So, and by the way, is she going to then be okay with teaching about the pro-life movement and how we overturned Roe versus Wade by our activism?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right. That's a fascist move, because you got to teach, if you're not teaching both as something good, which is that Americans, regardless if you agree with them or not, utilize the systems of law and protest and petitioning the government for redress of grievances to overturn a law that was a decision by a court in the 1970s, because they believe that that's killing a child, and the science and technology have also confirming that. Well, you got to teach that part too.
Yes, but again, it allows you to teach it as long as the parents are aware of it.
Right.
And the school board authorizes it.
You don't have to. And I'm not sure you even would at this age
The difference
group.
is, I think most conservative parents will go, yeah, we don't really want that discussion happening.
And honestly, I just want my
school.
kids to be able to do math and science at a level that the kids in these other countries are being able to do, and read and write. That's what you're doing through K through middle school. In high school, you start learning a lot more about history and get a little deeper into world history and U.S. history. But like, how about just learning basic U.S. history first? But they don't like that U.S. history anymore either. Remember, they want to rewrite what our history is.
Well, no, because that's the revisionist history.
Right.
And you know, we were talking about this the other day. I mean, the founding fathers are now taboo. They don't even want it discussed. You went to George Washington University. You said you're not sure that'll be the name of the school in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, the colonials.
That's the team.
Yeah. I mean, now, a lot of that was happening. A lot of that has stopped. There has been a pushback, like when BlackRock announced the end of ESG investing, or a pullback on ESG investing. Why? Because, banks like BlackRock are failing.
Well, let me tell you.
So what you're worried about now is your fiduciary responsibility, not your social responsibility.
We're not going to have time to get into it today, but we talked about it in our pre-radio meeting. But let me tell you something, folks. Deutsche Bank, I'm talking about a major institute. Now, you could say SVB was a mid-sized regional or a large regional. Okay, Deutsche Bank is a global lender like Credit Suisse, okay?
It's equivalent of a JP Morgan.
Stock dropped
Merrill
14% on Friday, 12%. I mean, I haven't looked at it as of right now, but it was down 12%, this afternoon.
It's one of the biggest players in
that's
the world.
a 25% loss of value in 48 hours. Let me tell you, if Deutsche Bank falls, you're going to have a little economic impact.
Sure.
Yeah, yes. And you know what part of this is?
But it impacts us. I think
The
people hear
war
Deutsche
in Ukraine
Bank,
is part of this. It's the expenditures of this have gotten out of control.
and now we've got an American dead in Syria linked to that as well.
Yes. So
when you think that, we don't have people on the battlefield, we do. And one just got killed yesterday.
I think the thing that we have to do here is realize, and again, what we're trying to do here is offer hope and solutions. On the Parents' Bill of Rights, we gave you a fact sheet, we gave you information, you responded.
Marker down.
Putting the marker down, pass the House. Not likely in the Senate, in all probability. But you know what? Every school district's aware of it now.
You want them all on the record, don't you?
You
For
sure
that next
want every
election
one of
cycle,
them
they
record,
start talking like
Hakeem Jeffries.
And AOC.
Exactly right. So we encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ.
Yeah, double the impact of your donation. We have a matching challenge right now at aclj.org. And what does that mean? It means if you make a $30 donation right now at aclj.org, we have donors who will match that. They've agreed to match it the entire month. But you have to make the initial donation. So you donate $30, they match it with an additional $30. So because of your $30, ACLJ gets $60. So again, it's a time when I know that dollars are tighter. You can really, again, you can double the impact of what you're able to give. Even your $5 becomes $10. Donate today at aclj.org. Be part of that matching challenge. And as always, we encourage you. You can share this broadcast with your friends and family. We got into info today that is being reported nowhere else.